Hey,
Yes.
check out this chord. Give it a gander.
Okay. I can't see it from over here, but it sounds like some kind of sus chord.
It is very much so a sus,
Yes.
an A-flat sus. Now check this out.
Yeah. That has some kind of altered extensions, a flat 13, maybe a flat 9 or sharp 9.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
An altered chord.
Altered. So you might say it's an alternative jazz chord.
You might say, yes, you might say it's an alternative jazz chord. I think I know where you're going with this.
Let's explore.
Let's. Let's. I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Jazz Talk.
Jazz Talk sponsored today by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for your jazz lesson needs.
Let's talk about what's happening over at Open Studio real quickly.
Yes, please.
Because it's the end of the year. Always an exciting time. Lots of new members.
Yes, tons of new members over at Open
And
Studio.
our mentor sessions continue.
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Taylor Eitze will be joining us this
Friday.
week. We hope.
Yeah.
Because last week he showed us a ghost.
Yeah. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, we just had Taylor Eitze on Friday.
Yeah, no, he had a little bit of change in his travel and recording plans, but we're super excited he's coming back. Man, these mentor sessions this year have been so fun.
They've been bangers.
I get inspired. I get excited for Friday. I'm like TGIF because of the mentor sessions.
I know. They're super fun.
And for those of you that don't know about
Emmett
this,
Cohen coming up on the 15th. That's going to be great.
Nice.
Yeah.
We had you last week. That was awesome.
It was okay.
No, it was really good. We just have fun. It's so fun to see the community together live on Zoom.
Totally.
Doing something, coming together for something that they love, just talking, just
a couple
hundred people,
couple
Open
hundred
Studio
people
members.
talking about jazz.
And it's available to all Open Studio members. So check that out at openstudiojazz.com. And today we are back on the speak pipe. Did you know that?
So we've got a great speak pipe from...
We need to address the elephant, lisping elephant very quickly.
We have a speak pipe from Zach, but we also have a speak pipe from, I don't know if your name is James or R. James, but this is one of my favorite speak pipes ever, and it is the elephant in the room.
Hey guys, really like the episode, but it sounds like you're both developing a lisp. I can't tell if it's like the audio editing or if this is like a really oblique reference to all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth.
That's it.
Yep. You got it.
Like, is this a joke that I meant to get?
Yes.
I'm not sure. This
is all intended.
Really stressing me out.
This whole show.
Please respond.
1,100 episodes.
I love that. I really stressed me out. Please respond. So Okay.
Really,
is our audience the best or what?
They're the best.
Our audience is the best.
They are the best. They are the best. 100%.
So we did have a
100% the best.
We had a slight de-essing problem.
We did have a de-essing
and our wonderful viewers on YouTube and listeners. And look, if you're not on YouTube, get over there and check us out.
Yeah.
There's been some confusion about this. Go and search for You'll Hear It.
There's a whole You'll Hear It channel.
It's bespoke, as we say, from the
bespoke.
Open Studio. But it's a great place, even if you don't
bedazzled.
want to. It's bejeweled.
Bejeweled.
It is a great place to comment and to banter. And a bunch of our viewers and listeners noticed that we sounded like we had a lisp. We had a little bit of a de-essing problem. We don't need to go into it, but that's what it was.
What was most amazing is that it was a de-esser escalation that occurred that we couldn't edit out.
A de-escalation.
Because it was on the front end of the signal chain. But what was amazing is that like the listeners in the comments heard it right away.
Yeah.
The podcast called You'll Hear It. They heard it.
They heard it.
They were like, that's a de-esser that's gone crazy.
Yeah, so we have some big shout out to our amateur and professional engineers in the house. And I learned a new term and a new technique. But anyway, I think we're back on track here. And I'm excited about just getting back on the speak pipes. And if you don't know about that, go to you'llhearit.com. You can leave us a question at any time. We are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our little You'll Hear It gnomes are monitoring the speak pipe at you'llhearit.com.
You'llhearit.com.
But only for 90 seconds.
That's right. 90 seconds is all you get. A minute and a half. That's it.
That's it. But we have a question from a friend of the show, friend of the pod, out of the great state of Texas today, I believe.
Zach,
out of the Houston coastal region.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Adam. It's your buddy Zach from Houston. Longtime listener, longtime adherent to the Gentlemen and Ladies Agreement.
Gala.
Hey, I noticed something about this year's Grammy Awards. There's a category I had not noticed before. I don't know how long this has been a category, but apparently there is a category for alternative jazz. Now that strikes me as a label kind of like contemporary jazz. I think I know what they mean, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, Adam, I know you especially love to talk about categories of music
I do.
and subgenres. So I had to ask both of you, what is alternative jazz? What makes alternative jazz different from just non-alternative jazz? And what do you think of the Grammys having alternative jazz as a category? Looking forward to hearing from y'all.
Thank you, Zach. Can I just address the thing about me with the genre? So
No.
Famously, I have on this show said how useless I think genres are for an artist, as an artist, to define yourself.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about how labels are put on things after the fact. Do you think Kamasi Washington says, I'm an alternative jazz musician and I play alternative jazz? There's no way that he's defining himself in any of these parameters. This is something that things like organizations, institutions put on art after the fact to try to categorize it. It's okay that they do that. I'm not saying that it's not okay.
You kind of sound like you're saying it's
no.
okay.
I'm not saying it's not okay. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. We're little mammals that love to put things into boxes because it makes us feel safe, and it makes sense that the Grammys would do this. I'm just saying, as an artist, when I'm trying to make art, I'm really trying to get rid of any labels for myself so that I can be as from the heart as possible. And I think this new category of jazz that I'd never heard of before right now, called alternative jazz, which is now a Grammy category, which legitimizes it as a term, is like, to me, the perfect example of what we've been trying to talk about here with labels and how they're put on the music after the fact.
Okay, so I kind of agree with you, but I'm going to push back a little in saying, I mean, I agree that these are labels put in after the fact. But what is the Grammy, whatever it is, the Arts and Recording Society, the Recording Academy? Mm-hmm. First of all, it's predominantly musicians that are part of it that vote and they create these categories and and all these different bylaws. The folks that I know in the Recording Academy is primarily musicians. So it is us in a way, for better or for worse, in terms of making these decisions. So sometimes I think when we portray things as like something that they're putting on us, is it really them putting it on us? Or like if it's predominantly musicians that are running the organization, it might be a different category of a hierarchy of folks within the organization. We might look at it, but I think we do need to take some responsibility, for better or for worse, as musicians with these labels. I appreciate what you're saying in terms of as part of the process of being an artist and the creative side of it.
I'm just saying that none of the artists that are nominated for the alternative jazz category probably came up with the word alternative jazz. They're not labeling their own music alternative jazz when they think about it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So in that sense, they are anybody who's not the artist nominated in the category.
But maybe there is a usefulness in terms of whatever the term is going to be, to have a little bit more specific categories.
I do think
if
so.
If you like in other words, it could be a bad thing if you don't do something right, but it doesn't make the idea of adding another category or a subgenre in itself a bad thing. It could be misused. It could be silly. It could be not applicable. It could be that all these different artists, and we're going to look at kind of some of the artists. First of all, it's only been nominated now. So there hasn't, it's kind of funny because it makes it sound like it's already happened. This just happened and it's for 2024. So we have the nominees, but we don't have any winners of this yet.
So I think it would actually be most helpful, and this is where you're going to see the distinction.
Yeah.
We should compare the nominees of the alternative jazz album to the nominees of the jazz album.
Okay.
Right? So
for I've got pulled up here is the nominees for alternative jazz. We got Vijay Iyer, Corey Henry, Kurt Elling, with Charlie Hunter, Louis Cole, and Michelle Ndegeocello. This is a really cool record. If you check that out, the Omnichord Real.
No, I don't know that one.
It's
but
a great.
I've heard it. I've heard other people say it's great. Yeah, I gotta check.
All
it out.
these are.
Yeah, the Kurt Elling record is great with Charlie Hunter. They've been touring with that record too.
Yep. So I mean, Louis Cole, we talked about him on the pod.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of. I don't know. To me, this kind of makes sense. Like to call this alternative. Now, my question is alternative jazz maybe what we're thinking of as jazz, and is all this stuff actually what people think of as jazz today? I mean, if you go on State of the Jazz playlist on Spotify and stuff, these are the kinds of artists, this is the kind of music. If you go to a performing arts center or to a jazz club, you're going to see a lot of these kinds of artists, young people, young aspiring jazz musicians, Berklee students, that kind of thing. This is what they're listening to, I think, a lot. And in terms of like, I love jazz. VJ Iyer, Corey Henry, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think they're saying that I love alternative jazz.
So what's interesting here is what do you like musically? Here's the best. There's a couple of different. So here are the best alternative jazz albums.
Yeah. Should I put up your thing here?
Yeah, I have. Looks like a Jazz 88 website here with all the nominations on it.
Here we go. No. Oh, it's okay. We'll just talk about it.
So
Let's just talk about
the
it.
best jazz performance
Yeah.
is a Grammy category. And there are 5 nominees: Adam Blackstone featuring the Baylor Project and Russell Ferrante,
Yeah.
Fred Hirsch and Esperanza Spalding, John Batiste, Lakeisha Benjamin, and Samara Joy.
Yeah. So you
And-
might say a little more swing, acoustic based kind of.
Well, what's interesting is all of those nominees for Best Jazz Performance also have some nomination in either Best Jazz Vocal Album or Best Jazz Instrumental Album.
Yeah.
None of the Best Alternative Jazz Album nominees are in that Best Jazz Performance, which I think is kind of interesting.
Well, the jazz performance one was one that was added on later too.
right.
You know.
But I can't really see musically what is the difference between, say, the Best Jazz Instrumental Album, where you've got Adam Blackstone, obviously featuring, that album contains the Baylor Project.
Yeah.
You've got Lakeisha Benjamin. You've got Pat Metheny. This is not like straight tipping.
Right.
You know what
hear
I
you're
mean?
saying.
You also got Billy Childs, also probably not straight tipping either. I actually
Right.
haven't heard Winds of Change. We listened to that one track.
Yeah.
Kenny Barron, which seems, likely to be straight ahead.
Yeah.
But then you've got, Corey Henry, Kurt Elling, and Charlie Hunter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. What is the delineation? What makes something an alternative jazz album as
Okay,
opposed
so
to
check
just
this
an
out.
instrumental?
We're gonna see. We're not endorsing this, but this is, this very special
Crossover
subscription site that I have access to with insider information called Wikipedia. The category was created in response to the growing explosion of crossover jazz and the creativity of contemporary jazz artists who are exploring and incorporating elements of other genres into their music, specifically citing the work of artists such as The Comet is Coming, Georgia Ann Muldrow, Casa Overall, Mackay McCraven, Kamasi Washington, Sons of Kemet, and Robert Glasper as examples of jazz's evolving sound and the need for a new category to honor these albums. I mean, that's kind of an interesting and altruistic, reasoning to create this. I like that. Now, full disclosure, half of these artists I really don't know, or I've heard of, but I don't know their music. I'm pretty familiar with Kamasi Washington, of course, Robert Glasper. But let's take Robert Glasper, for example. So I think he's done projects over the years that would pretty clearly, like if you had to say, does that go in the best jazz album or best jazz performance or the best alternative jazz? Like you could put
He
one
won
in
the best
here and
R&B album Grammy.
well, then there's that.
Chris Brown.
Well, that's not even talking about that. But I'm saying like
Yeah.
some of his trio recordings clearly would go into the jazz. Like, are they jazz alternative? Yeah, maybe. But whereas like the experiment projects would probably fall better into this. And maybe it's to answer people that are like, well, Robert Glasper, when he's playing acoustic trio, that's jazz. But when he does that other stuff, that's not really jazz. And maybe pushing it all the way to R&B is a little bit too much of a stretch. It's a question. I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no.
I mean,
you look nervous.
Well, I'm saying this is like, it's not as clear cut, I feel like, as maybe it used to be with this kind of stuff.
Domi and JD Beck, are they jazz? Yes or no?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It depends
is it
on who
easier
you're
to ask?
asking. If you ask my Aunt Linda, yes, there's no words to it, and they're improvising. That means jazz to my Aunt Linda.
Poor Aunt Linda is just your
No,
fallback.
but that's what I'm saying. Who are you asking? Because for some people, yes,
if you were to be
that's
taken
jazz.
hostage by a foreign state that was not friendly to the United States, and they said, "What words do you have to say?" Would you quote Aunt Linda immediately to get out of it?
No, but I'm just saying. I would never. But
Would you give her up
No,
for your own
Of
safety and
course not.
security?
No, sweet Aunt Linda. But no.
But would you feel more comfortable if I said Domi and JD Beck, jazz or more alternative jazz or jazz adjacent? Could we think of alternative jazz as what we call jazz adjacent?
So, is Herbie in the 70s jazz adjacent?
Yeah, he goes into, it depends on which Herbie. Secrets? Would you be thinking of Secrets by any
Is
chance?
Secrets jazz adjacent?
Jazz
or is that
adjacent, yeah.
Okay,
I
so
wouldn't
that's
say-
not jazz because why?
No, it is jazzy. It's jazz alternative. It's jazz.
So-
See, I like it.
But
I
I'm
messed
asking,
up with that. I didn't mean
what
that.
about that
Jazzy.
is not? Is it because it's funky? Is because there's no swing to it? There's no spang? Because a lot of the jazz.
Well, I'm
you know,
trying not to use jazz fusion because to me, fusion doesn't is not as useful as a term as some of these other ones to me. I mean, there's a hierarchy, and I agree. None of them from an artistic standpoint, a creation standpoint, or of any use at all. But as a describer, in terms of like, oh, Herbie's going to be playing. Oh, what band? Oh, he's got this new band. Oh, is it like the Secrets band? Is it like jazz adjacent? Is it the funky band? Is it like there's all different things you could say. To me, that's where there's a usage. If you can explain it and that can spark in someone to be like, oh yeah, I love it when he's doing that stuff. It doesn't mean you don't love his straight ahead trio stuff or like, the quintet with Blade and Michael Brecker and Roy Hargrove. That's jazz, right? There's no question about that. I would never be like, oh, Secrets is not jazz. No, that's fine. But it doesn't tell you a lot about the multifaceted musical persona as an arranger and a composer and a producer and a creator that Herbie is, so when we just say that everything Herbie does is jazz.
But why would we even say that, though? Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, why even put that label on it? So what is the label that you would put on Secrets? What is that? So what is the label that helps us with that?
Jazz funk, maybe.
Jazz funk, maybe.
Yeah. It doesn't help. Look, this is the thing. It's not for us. And it's probably not even for a lot of our listeners. It's not for people that really know and create the stuff themselves. Yeah. Not that we're anything special. It's just like, but it's like if you're getting on an airplane and you're an aeronautical engineer, is that a thing? You're an engineer that understands, and like you hear a sound, you're going to be like, oh, that's because the such and such. And you're going to start naming a bunch of things that you don't need to know just to be a Southwest Airlines passenger in Group B. You're both going to get from point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get from New York to wherever you're flying. But I'm saying somebody that knows, so like we kind of know some of this stuff, so these describers aren't as much. To somebody that doesn't know that,
this is what I've been saying.
That's a safe thing. That's just this kind of sound.
But this is what I've been saying for months, right? Yeah. Is like, to my Aunt Linda, Herbie in the 70s, Secrets is jazz, right? Yeah. Just because it's not the Carpenters, right? It's not, which ironically played a little jazz. But no, but to you, like we can be more specific. That's the Headhunters era. Like we know that specific, and with us, that's Secret specifically. Like we know that music.
Yeah.
And so I think it's all about the context of who you're talking to. And so that's why I'm not like, I don't think it's bad that the Grammy Awards came up with a new category to try to expand with, as they're mentioning here, like the way musicians pull from other influences. I'm just saying my whole thing with this has always been, from an artist perspective, it's not helpful for me personally to say I am this kind of musician, therefore I only make this kind of music.
I agree, but this is not labels, the Grammys, these categorizations, the reasoning. I would contend even the reasoning for expanding the number of categories, which is what they've done. This is not replacing anything. This is adding on a new category, right? I think there is a contemporary jazz category already, I believe. But anyway, I'm saying like this is not for artists. Like create your music to put in there. I think artists and creators should and do create what they want to do. The categorization is for Aunt Linda. And it's not even for Aunt Linda. It's for somebody that's like, well, I like jazz, but I want to know about this. It's kind of like you go into a wine store. We have red wine, we have white wine. Or first of all, you could just be, let's go to a liquor store. Give me some liquor. Like that's like the lowest level. Just give me some alcohol. And then it could be like, would you want hard stuff or do you want wine? Oh, you like wine. So as you get into it, do you like red wine or white wine? Do you like sweet? Oh, do you like red wine from this country, this continent? Like there's all different levels to it. And yeah, somebody who really, a wine producer in Portugal is not going out and saying, I'm going to make a jazz adjacent Portuguese wine from this. No, they just create what they want to create, which is great. But to the consumer, I think it is interesting to be like, oh, this is the style of it. Maybe the producers are like, it's kind of silly because they're saying it's dry, but it's actually multidimensional and it crosses over into a lot of things.
But wine, this is you're using a great analogy here that I think we can put towards music. Yes, the category a Malbec is a genre of wine, right? But what's the second thing you ask about a Malbec?
How much does it cost?
What's the third thing you ask about a Malbec?
What is the alcohol content?
What's the fourth thing you ask?
Where's it from?
Where's it from?
Right.
Because why does that matter?
Because of the terroir? Yes. Because of the style? Because it speaks to the style.
It speaks to the style of the actual wine. Maybe as much as the grape itself, maybe not quite as much as the grape, but certainly it's like second down the list. So to me, that says a very similar thing about music. Is like, what is the culture where this musician is coming from. I mean, I think that's why.
But you'll see stuff like Latin, best Latin jazz performance. Like that is a category, best Latin jazz album, like that speaks to coming from a certain area, but also to a certain style, right?
Right. Again, Norah Jones and Leve, they might be. Leve might get nominated. Is she nominated at all this year? She might.
I don't know, but have you seen their
pop record?
I just watched today.
Yeah, they just made a record.
Really nice.
Christmas album.
Oh, it was a record. I just saw the video of the Christmas song.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But again,
alternative jazz.
Culturally, where's that coming from?
That I think is wade in the water. I'm about to wade in some bad waters here. Mid-century pop.
Right.
I think that's what that sounds like to me.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
But we didn't have that term. Shout out Adam Neely until recently. Oh, maybe we did. I had never heard it. I'm an idiot. There's a lot of stuff
pop
I don't
music
know.
from the mid 20th century, Peter.
Right. I mean, I knew about the cool little glass coffee table that I want. That's $1,200. The mid-century modern with the Noguchi. I love the Noguchi. I knew that was mid-century. As soon as you say mid-century, I'm thinking that, and I don't even hear pop. I didn't know the term, but I think that's an example of a useful. Yeah. Does it tell you everything about Norah Jones? No. Norah Jones is a great jazz pianist. She's got pop. I mean, she has all these cool influences, and she probably doesn't appreciate being put into a box. But on that duo with Leve doing the Christmas. Now, what are they doing? Have yourself a merry little Christmas. That's got a very pop kind of feel. And like if I were to tell Aunt Linda or you or Caleb or me or anybody, that says something about what it is. It's not everything, but it does. It's better than like it's. Wouldn't you rather hear that than it's an alternative jazz version?
I totally agree. Yeah.
I'm scared of you with the glasses too, man.
I know.
It takes to the level. It's very intimidating.
But I just think it's funny looking at all of these Grammy
You're not a
categories.
fan, are you?
Well, no.
I'm not a fan of jazz
categories. No. I am, but you.
What was Zach's question, by the way?
Reading all the categories at once, you're like, oh, this is fairly useless. There's not a clear line in the sand.
I would just say that for the addition of this alternative jazz category,
like the greatest one is the best large jazz ensemble or the best vocal, because there is a clearly defined. Oh, there's vocals on this. It's a large ensemble. That I can swing. Yeah.
Well, you know what I do like about these in general? It gives more Grammys to jazz and jazz adjacent people.
For sure.
Like it opens up more, and this is
There's
something
more
that
opportunities for great musicians to get some recognition.
Yeah, and the whole thing
100%.
about large ensembles, it's like, are there people that are saying, oh, I only like large ensemble jazz, I hate small ensemble jazz? No. Although there are some people that like, I love vocal jazz. I love great vocal jazz. And that says something, obviously, and to your point, that's an easier description, because it's like the difference between a music reviewer giving their opinion about a performance and then coming and saying, okay, Adam Manis, there's a concert of Adam Manis's brand new compositions. They were written for an ensemble of 7 players, 2 oboes, and like where you're really just telling what it is. There's nothing to dispute because you're describing what it is. I think those kind of labels are always the best.
Yeah.
But they're not as obvious. We might say, oh, like classical music. Well, no, not really. Because if you say, oh, I'm going to go hear classical music, well, what are you saying? You're saying the classics. So something elevated and Eurocentric. Like that brings into question a lot of
I started a group this
things.
year, and it's called Pop, Pop, Pop. And our tagline is, we're a string orchestra dedicated to the art of the pop song.
I thought it was Jazz Explained.
It is not jazz. It's jazz talk.
Jazz talk.
Pop talk. But that's defining exactly you're going to get a string orchestra, and there's going to be some songs. There's going to be some popular songs from all eras.
If we do some recording, which I'm hoping we do with that group next year,
yes, we will be doing that.
Would it fit into this newly monikered jazz alternative category of the Grammy Association?
It might fit into the large jazz ensemble. We'll see.
Actually, yeah, it totally would.
We might. Yeah.
Or what about mid-century pop? Like the Jerome Kern.
It could. Right here is a couple of our influences for Pop, Pop, Pop. Vince Mendoza and the Metropole Orchestre are nominated as Best Jazz Large Ensemble Album.
Yeah.
That's like a direct.
That's a great category. It makes sense. McBride is one there with the big band. Lincoln. Yeah. I mean, like it really makes sense, and it's there's a rich tapestry within even that. You wouldn't think, but like the Metropole Orchestra, Jazz and Lincoln Center, McBride's big band. Pop, pop, pop. Like those are all very different, but there is something that binds them together to be in a category that makes sense. I mean, I hate the competitive part, but I love the celebration. I love the celebratory part of this.
There's
I
another-
love Michelle Andegocello having, for my own selfish reasons, because I'm a huge fan of hers, that she can come out with this really cool, quirky, artistically adventurous and highly like just refined and just a dope record, you know, that's called the Omnichord Real Book, which could like, where does that, can't it have a home? You know what I mean? Does she have to be R&B because that's what she was known for? But then most people know her for like John Cougar Mellencamp pop hit. And then she's been associated with jazz players, but I don't think she would be like, yes, I'm a jazz bassist.
I don't think so either.
But jazz alternative, I love that.
So the other thing with the alternative jazz is, you know, I'm a kid who grew up in the 90s, Peter.
Yeah.
I grew up with alternative music.
See, yeah, so maybe you're bringing a
And
little...
so now when I heard of this, I thought, oh, is it jazz musicians doing stuff like...
Yeah.
Well, Ulysses Owens Jr.
I was
video.
just like, I was about to say, he's going to be jazz alternative for his incredible reading of Nirvana that he never heard. Yeah, so what did we learn today? Categories. Let's close our eyes. We're both going to say thumbs up or
You know what?
thumbs
Also,
down.
our listeners love it when we talk about genres. Our listeners love it when we discuss.
But just to circle back a little bit, before we clear out of here, to what Zach's question was, just about specifically in this category, not categorization in general, the Grammys, the Recording Academy adding this category. Do you think it's a good thing, bad thing, or a neutral thing? The alternative jazz.
I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
More categories with great musicians under the big jazz umbrella is great.
You guys heard it. Adam said more genres and more subgenres. Great.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.